Alright, so let's dive into wireframing. And when we talk about wireframing, it's all about beginning that discovery of how do you want your website to be designed, and probably almost more important is the user experience that you want to create. When you see user experience, it's usually denoted with a UX. So just keep that in mind. So when we talk about wireframing, it's definitely one of the primary steps in the design process, and maybe even arguably it's one of the most important steps. It's the time when your ideas start to take shape, so you're taking them from a conceptual idea in your head to putting them on paper. And even though it might look simple from some of the examples that I briefly showed in class, it's very easy to do it poorly. If you don't put a lot of time and a lot of insight into it, it can be pretty bad. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the right things to do and the wrong things to do when you are wireframing, and show you what it is and some of the steps to get started. So I think one of the important things to address right off the bat is what is a wireframe. And it's basically a skeleton of your layout. Wireframes really don't use actual interface elements. So, if you want a video on your web page, you're not going to drag and drop an image of a video on there. And if you have some buttons for your navigation, you're not actually going to use the actual words that you're going to have as the content for your hyperlinked text. It's all very box based, and so these UI elements or user interface elements are just going to be represented as a box. As I previously said, wireframes are definitely early on in the design phase. Definitely helps with the process to help kind of validate the information architecture that you've created and understanding how you want your users to flow through this information. So here's a picture of a wireframe. It's pretty basic, pretty common right there. A lot of people will just doodle and use pen and paper and sketch it out. There are also some tools that you can use later on in this process. So I think the next question is, why is it important? Why do we even bother? This is definitely a critical step in the design process, as it really helps you determine how you want your website to look, and even more important, how you want it to function. Wireframing ensures that everyone in a team setting is kind of on the same page about how you want this final product to look and to act, and how to interact with your users. Yeah, so super important. This user experience is the flow of the website. This is everything from the navigation to any interactive elements that you want to put on your website. And I think the next thing is actually getting started. What's the first step? And I think the first step is to keep in the forefront of your mind not only your own goals for this website, but the goals of the user. You're trying to present information to your audience and have them complete certain actions, but the user is trying to find the information that they need as quickly as possible in the fewest clicks as possible. They're kind of on the prowl. They're on the hunt for information, and if they can't find the information they're looking for on your website in the fewest clicks possible, then they're going to move on. Going back to your goals, conversions is a word that we use in web design, and you have a predetermined action that you want your user to accomplish. That's a conversion. So I think a great example is any type of online retail website. A conversion would be that they buy something, so that they search for something, they find something, they put it in the cart, and they purchase it. A conversion could also be that they find something and put it in the cart. If that's something that you're hoping that you're trying to accomplish, then that can be a conversion. You decide what the conversion is. I think it's important to also keep in mind that it needs to be simple. We don't need a lot of different colors. We don't need a lot of fancy images, boxes, placeholders. It needs to be very simple. The reason that you do need to keep it simple is because you can quickly get those ideas out of your head and onto paper when you do come up with them. Keeping in mind that there is a lot of thought process that goes into it, but you can sketch down those ideas while you have them as far as the layout goes. It allows you to quickly change those ideas as you're collaborating with other people, and it's not something that's super cumbersome to change if you need to. Going back to this idea of collaborating, be sure that it's easy to follow and easy to understand, because if you're working with other people, they need to know what you're thinking. And so creating maybe labels or some annotation in there, creating some notes is going to be important. And so whenever we talk about that, I think here's a great example. You can see that we have some little notes up in the top, or kind of surrounding each of the pages that they've drawn out. I think that's a great example. So start on paper. Definitely want to sketch things out so that things are easy to change, so that things are easy to get down on paper when you have that idea. Then move on to using some digital tools. And there's a lot of them out there. If you just Google wireframing tools, some of them will pop up. Most of them you have to pay for, but the vast majority you can use like a 7-day free subscription. Talked about this before. Avoid using graphical elements, anything that's over the top. Don't really use any crazy colors. Grayscale prevents distractions in colors, so don't be using a lot of different colors on the layout. Keep it simple. And don't worry about making it pretty. You do want to be sure that everyone in your team, and me as an instructor, understands what you're trying to convey, but don't worry about it being pristine. Here's I think another example of not making them pretty. I mean, this is very, very basic, very bare bones, getting the point across. And once again, we have some annotation on there as well. So for this assignment, I do need your home page, and I need one internal page to be wireframed out, so I have a good idea of your user experience that you want to create and the layout. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to draw one out real quick just to show you kind of what I'm expecting. So we're keeping it simple by just using good old marker and a piece of paper. Let's say that you had a really cool idea and you want to get it down on paper. This is a great way to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into two sections. One can be my home and one can be my internal. So I'm just going to say home. And then this one can be my internal. Let's say I'm going to do an About Me page for my internal. So it's gotta be kind of like our header. The next thing you definitely want to make sure that you include is a distinction between what your website browser is. And so this could just be one more, I don't know, like let's say this top part is going to be the browser tab, like we have our little tab here, and we have a little X. So we're just making that denotation. And then home. And then about. There we go. So pretty much means that the rest of this is going to be our content, and this is like our web browser in each of these sections. So thinking about the idea of what I want, I might start out in pencil so that I can erase when I need to. But I do know that I want something like a logo and navigation. And so I might just start out by sketching my logo up here, and that's just going to be denoted with a box with an X through it. Typically, this box with an X through it means that it's some type of image. And so whenever you draw this, I'll know that you're wanting an image there. And then let's say that I want my navigation. Let's say that I know I'm going to have 5 links. And we can just create some boxes. That will be our navigation link. I'm just going to close those out into boxes. There we go. So I know that is where our navigation is going to go. I probably want some type of hero image up at the that'll be kind of the background for our logo, etc. So once again, this image is going to be denoted with a large box with an X through it. So that'll be our hero image. In the next section, I want to show off maybe like some of the work. So maybe like a small portfolio. So this will be like a different section. And I know that I want some images, but I want them in a circle. So let's try to see if I can find something that is a circle that I can use to kind of help with the OCD. But I don't think I'm going to find a stencil, so I'm just going to maybe freehand it. So say that I know I want 3 circles that preview some of the work that we've done, and I know that I want a link under each one of them. Or maybe like some type of button that they can read more about each project. And those will be images. And then I know that I want a footer section, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that footer. And then one thing that I don't think I've talked about yet is if you want text, you can just use lines. So let's say that I want maybe like a header up here, and then I want some more content down here, and then maybe a second header, and then begin another paragraph down here. And then how about we do one more image. And let's not forget the big old X in there. That way we know it's an image. And then in the footer, we'll have some more information. So we'll have like all of our links listed in there. Maybe we want our social media icons in there somewhere. And then, I don't know, we'll probably have some copyright information in there somewhere. So there we go. That's one. That would be our home page. You would do your one internal page over here, where the content would be different. You'd still have your navigation. You'd still have a logo somewhere, and you would still have a footer. I would say your footer would probably be almost a carbon copy to what you're going to have over here in your internal pages, but your header, which with your logo and your navigation might be a little different. So explore, look at what you see out there on websites that you think look cool, and then work on developing this wireframe. If you have questions, you can always let me know. Shoot me an email or come by my office.